So a warm welcome to you all. For those who don't know me, my name's Emma Kate Rose. I'm the Executive Director of Food Connect Foundation. And this is the launch of our inaugural South East Queensland Food Summit report. If you've got questions, just pop them in the chat. I just want to begin today's session by acknowledging the traditional custodians on the place on which we stand today. So I'm at Food Connect Shed today in Salisbury. This is Yuggera country, and Derek Sandy told us some really interesting facts about our local area. So just our neighbours in Maruka, so Noruka is named after the ironbark tree. It's named as the place of the ironbark. Down the road is Nyanda, which is a place of waterholes. Close by in Tui Forest is called Kukura, which is a place of where the echidnas live. And just further down the road is Urongapilli and Uronga, which is a place of sandy gullies that feed into the Mayware, the Brisbane River. So it's really lovely to have, that context of what the traditional custodians lived with all those years ago. And I just wanted to acknowledge both the Yuggera and the Turrbal people and neighbouring clans, whose ancestors stewarded these lands and their diverse creatures sustainably for thousands and thousands of years. I want to pay my respects to, the elders past and present, and to all Indigenous people who are online today. And to just acknowledge too that the country was never ceded. And I know that, one year on from the Voice referendum really does show that we have a lot to do as a country. And in fact, for me personally, it really is the work of our time, because it's just so interrelated with our food systems and the health of our future generations. And just to, make a really clear point, the colonisation and dispossession were acts of genocidal violence, some of what we're seeing overseas today, in the process of historical truth-telling and what must lead to a duly negotiated treaty is barely in its infancy here in Queensland, but let's maintain that path to a better food system for Australians by showing that we can recover this history based on principles of care and respect, healing, justice and regeneration. Okay, so a little bit about us. Rob, do you want to give us a bit of a background of Food Connect's history? Sorry, you're on mute. That's okay. Do you want me to do it?
No,
oh, you got it.
I was remiss to say that for those that don't know me, my name's Robert Pekin. I'm the co-CEO of the Food Connect Foundation and director, along with Emma Kate. I'm in the other side of the Food Connect shed, where we don't have reverb through our systems. So the Food Connect Foundation was formed in 2009 when we replicated the Food Connect shed, or the Food Connect Brisbane model right across Australia. And we sort of see ourselves as an advocacy and educational arm, deeply rooted in place-based food systems and all sorts of other activities. It's been a rolling journey since 2009. In 2018, we created the Food Connect Shed and successfully raised now up to $3 million to have the Food Connect Shed community owned. And that's been probably one of our hallmark endeavours over that time. And then a couple of years ago, we decided to see if we could translate what we'd learnt over the 20 years of having Food Connect Brisbane, which was a multi-farmer community-supported agriculture scheme. We wanted to see if some of those learnings could translate to the broader food system movement across regional Australia, and address some of the challenges we could see, particularly in what we call the missing middle group of farmers. Through that research, we discovered a whole bunch of things that you're going to find out about, which was the reason for the summit, was to bring a lot of people together to hear each other's voices and to understand that. Is there anything I missed there? I haven't got the slide up, so I don't know.
No, that's good.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. And just in terms of what we're doing now, so we aim to support regions and communities to co-create the foundations of regenerative food systems, landscapes and communities for future generations. That's sort of our mission. And we do this by connecting and coordinating food systems leaders to create regionalised and regenerative food and ag systems. We want to move a lot more into advocating by working with strategic partners across government, industry and finance sectors, and we don't want to do that on our own. We will always take a collaborative approach in advocating, because it's going to take, the community to get things done with these sort of, meta crises that we're in, and use the learnt experience and what we learn on the ground with other communities to inspire and educate the general public, through events here at the shed and also online. And through demonstration projects, as Robert mentioned, to basically empower the public to take action when it's needed. So just, why did we think of a food summit? So it's kind of, I guess it was a slow burn kind of idea. As Robert said, we wanted to move into looking at our backyard in particular. We've got a lot of experience working with 150 farmers in this region and a whole bunch of householders who we happily fed every week for 18 years. And that lived experience of grounded food systems action gave us a lot to share, and the Food Connect Foundation was set up really to share that experience with a lot of communities around Australia and across the world. And since we've closed Food Connect Brisbane, we've, done a lot of interviews. We've been invited to meetings, panel discussions. We do some fee-for-service work. So about, a good proportion of our of the Food Connect Foundation's revenue is through fee-for-service, but we're mostly funded by philanthropy and grants at the moment. We're a very small not-for-profit. It's just Robert and myself at the moment. So if you want to donate and give us some helpers to employ, then that would be awesome. We just want to build on those insights from the lived experience. And recently we did a project called, Coordinating a Values-Based Short Supply Chain. And we released that report at the Food Summit. So that's also online if you want to access it. And we wanted to share that report with a wide range of people, both from the industry, but also across the different policy areas that food touches on. And as we all know, food touches on so many different policy areas. We wanted to connect a lot more people to the South East Queensland food and ag system. So we know that there are so many people doing such incredible work in this region. And a lot of the time we're head down, bum up, and we can't see each other. We don't get time to talk. We don't get time to, sit around a table and plan and strategize and work better together. So this was our first attempt to do that and make ourselves known to each other and start building those relationships. And we wanted to do that in a way that didn't polarize. We want to do it in a way where we're across not just the alternative food system, but we're talking to mainstream, we're talking to anyone who's got an interest in the future of food and agriculture in this region. So it's really important for us that we take that collaborative approach and include all voices in the conversation. And then, of course, as some of you might or might not know, there's this tiny little event happening in a few years' time called the Brisbane 2032 Olympic and Paralympic Games. And so we thought, well, that's a pretty cool thing. Not that we're overly excited particularly by the Olympics, but now we are, because what we can see is that it presents us with a fantastic opportunity to have a look at the Olympic Games and Paralympic Games food vision. And we know that in Paris, they had quite an ambitious food vision over there. So it'll be really interesting to hear the learnings from the Brisbane Olympic Committee when we meet with them to see what Paris did well and where they may have fallen short and where the opportunities lie for us. But how can we use the Olympics as a catalyst in particular, and more importantly, the Olympic Games is a standalone event, but all host cities are now required to embed long-term legacy pieces as part of hosting the Games. So how can we use food systems change work in the lead up to the Games to catalyse that really long-term, regenerative food system that we all need, up to 2042, out to 2042, which is their horizon. Before we go into the details of the summit, I just want to acknowledge the support. Like Robert and I do not act alone. Sometimes it feels like we're out there alone in front all the time, but really we're not. We have some incredible supporters. So for the summit in particular, I'd like to acknowledge and send my gratitude to the MacDoc Foundation. They were incredibly supportive getting this event off the ground and making it what it was. The Food Connect Shed, of course, has been a great partner in the whole process. The Queensland Government we were successful in securing a community gambling benefit fund grant to host the policy day. Of course, we've got to thank Costa Georgiadis from ABC's Gardening Australia show has been such a champion of our work, and big gratitude to him. Event sponsors, Policy Day and Industry Day, was the Food and Agribusiness Network, who are based on the Sunshine Coast and are doing incredible things with food processors and manufacturers. And the Indigenous Food Sovereignty Panel was sponsored by the Women's Environmental Leadership Australia grant giving circle. So big thanks to them for helping us make that happen. And in general, the key supporters of Food Connect, I just want to give a shout out to MacDoc Foundation. Sustainable Table have been a big part of our journey, particularly since we closed Food Connect in late 2022. They've really helped us reorient the Food Connect Foundation's work and given us that support to pivot and get going in a new and more strategic way, which is just fantastic. The Ubuntu Foundation has been really great in supporting our work with buyers clubs and bulk buying groups here in Brisbane. The Banksy Foundation has also given us has also supported us, as well as small donors and a couple of other family foundations. So massive thanks to all of those supporters for helping us get to where we are today. Okay, so the summit, what was it about? It was held over 3 days on the 28th to the 30th of July. Seems like such a long time ago now, but it was more than I actually anticipated. And I think a lot of the feedback that was presented to us in the evaluation was just it was just really great to hear a lot of the feedback across the 3 days and 4 events that we held. So first day was People's Day, where we wanted to attract members of the public to meet their growers, meet their farmers, and they were able to do so through attending market stalls. We had 7 different types of workshops, everything from how to break up with your supermarket to making your own ricotta cheese to making native mocktails. It was a fantastic schedule. We had a kids zone. And the kiddies the main attraction for the kiddies, of course, was Costa, but we had some great interactive activities for the kids with gardening and artwork. And we also had listening posts. So the Australian Food Sovereignty Alliance, Northey Street City Farm, the Fair Food Futures Group from the UQ Policy Centre for Policy Futures, and the Lockyer Valley Fruit and Veg Co-op, they all set up little listening posts and spoke to people as they were, buying their veggies from farmers, and provided us with the feedback from the day to us on what their experiences and what their knowledge was of the food system. Day 2 was Industry Day. Just a very short, snappy 2-hour workshop in the afternoon, because we know that Monday's a hospo day and we wanted to not take up everybody's only day off in the hospitality industry. And so we had a standing up session mostly to keep everybody awake and active in their planning and telling us what they need and what their challenges were. And that finished off with a beautiful event with the Indigenous Food Sovereignty panel, where 4 incredible food system leaders in First Nations food systems, along with Teela Watson, who emceed the event. They were fed some beautiful food from Kapabunda Kitchen. And yeah, it was just a beautiful night, and you'll see a bit of vision of that soon. And the third day was Policy Day, and that was really to take the learnings from so we had report backs on Industry Day and Policy Day from People's Day. We also had a report back from Industry Day into Policy Day to basically set the scene from those previous 2 days and inform the room of what the first 2 days of the summit were all about, so that the policy wonks in the room could get some context before they sat down to work. And work they did. They spent a whole day from 9 o'clock to 3:30 working pretty hard. And at the start of the day, I did a head count, and at the end of the day, I did a head count, and pretty much no one had left. So, so that was really encouraging that they were all engaged and ready to work. Okay, so who attended on the first day? Of course, Costa. We had an amazing turnout. We had about over 1,000 people. We had a very limited marketing budget, and 1,000 people in a shed is a lot of people. So it was very full and very active, and just a great atmosphere. 20 local farmers came and food producers, as well as shed tenants, Food Connect shed tenants who, create their own food products. They all had stalls and sold to the public. 7 workshop facilitators. We had listening posts, and of course the wonderful Costa. On the Industry Day, we had First Nations food businesses. We had growers of all sizes. We had very large scale, broadacre, cattle farmers and sheep farmers and crop farmers. We also had inner city market gardeners. So we had the whole range, and that was really encouraging to see great attendance there. We had fantastic top-level chefs, cooks, social enterprises, hospitality workers. We had different types of wholesalers, so different scales, small-scale wholesalers, large-scale wholesalers, retailers. We didn't have the big retailers in the room, but we had quite a few small retailers. We had large hotels, large venues and stadiums, and that was really encouraging to see them. And it was quite interesting when we first put the call out for attendees and invitations to attend the Industry Day. It was pretty hard to get hold of industry people because, they're the doers in the food system, and they're usually head down, bum up, and very, very busy. So getting them in the room was a real challenge. But as we drew closer to the event, I was going to be really happy with 30 people in the room. We ended up with 60. So as we got closer to the event, I was actually getting asked, can I get a ticket? Can I get into this day? It sounds really great. So, Brisbane's a small place, which is great. The hospitality, network is pretty close, but it was just really encouraging to see the different scales of representation in the room, as well as the training organisations, TAFE and other educators who are doing good work in, preparing our new workforce for the future. Policy Day, we had 3 levels of government represented. We didn't get all the local councils in South East Queensland region in the room. A lot of the local councils, particularly the smaller ones in the regions, don't even have an economic development officer. So often you're asking the CEO to attend, and that is often quite tricky given how busy those people are. So we're going to persist with that in the future. We'll go to them as a result of this summit to present the findings. But we did have Moreton, the City of Moreton, we had Redlands, we had Brisbane City Council in the room, and I think we had Logan as well. So that was really encouraging. We had games delivery officials, so the games venues and legacy delivery authority or agency was in the room. Of course, the Brisbane 2032 committee were in Paris at the time, because the time we held the summit was smack bang in the middle of the Olympics. We have procurement professionals from a range of different corporations, but also state government departments like health and education. Social traders were there, and we had a whole heap of researchers from CSIRO and a number of universities in the health area, food systems, agriculture, and it was just really great to see also government departments, right across the board, state government departments participate as well. And, everyone worked particularly well together, I thought. Now, I'm going to give you a break from my voice. So the key messages that came out of the summit were divided up across the 4 events, and I've just got short reels that I'm going to play you so you can hear the key messages for yourselves. I hope this works.
And it's been free to just come and check it all out.
Gives the people a connection with healthy food and being able to raise their kids on healthy food as well.
Changing food systems is a huge passion of mine. So we are very connected with what Food Connect is doing. It's so important that we are all involved in knowing where our food is coming from and what's being done to it.
It's always good to know who your farmers is and buy stuff locally, I believe. It gives you a better connection to your food. You know what you're eating.
To get the educational process beginning, it's a great start so we can get people to know where your food comes from, what goes into your food, what can be done with that food, and what the importance of good, healthy, nutritious food.
Going to events like this, it really does broaden your perspective on what is available, and in that way gives people a bit more hope and feels like they have a bit more power than maybe what they...
My name is Tila Watson,
Indigenous food
born and raised in Brisbane. Very honoured to be sharing this conversation with all these incredible women. I was just remembering going to events and eating your food and, always being in community and seeing how much that space has grown and changed.
I think it was in Sydney in 2019. Over 200 Aboriginal businesses were there for a symposium. So, us 5 women in the beginning went, yoo-hoo, look at us go.
For me, being able to help enable the creation of ethical benefit sharing models that recognise Indigenous knowledge has informed the native foods industry in Australia and will continue to do so, and that there must be ways in which community can benefit and not just be sidelined to just being food producers.
Having the Bush Foods Orchard really brings food sovereignty front and centre now to our minds and everything that we do. It gives us local control. I love the fact that when the young people come there, they feel a sense of this is ours to share.
I'm a co-founder of a fairly new not-for-profit Euroone, which has been established to support urban grassroots Aboriginal food growing. So I'm involved in a sort of working group, a Gamilla grains working group. The grains are obviously very important, but the grains are just a conduit. The power of that stuff, when we come together around our foods and rebuild our good connections and our governance and ways of, proper ways of doing things.
Get yourself educated, as my mother always said, about the culture, about the people, and get involved and learn from us, because we do want to share. We all learn from each other.
This is the next one, sorry.
Here in Brisbane, we run the Brisbane Convention Centre. So we've got the executive sous chef here from the Brisbane Convention Centre, Cairns Convention Centre, Brisbane Entertainment Centre, Suncorp Stadium. A philosophy here that we've showcased local seasonal produce for over 30 years here in Queensland. We've looked less at diverting and looked more at reducing the waste coming to our site. So we've replaced our styrofoam with blue tubs instead. And so it gets washed and then given back to them in return. So we've eliminated 80% of styrofoam entering our site.
We're really trying to bring in a lot more direct supply. So the conversation piece, you know, when they know that they're growing it for Helen Smith Wallace or Ben Williamson or Cameron Matthews or you know, they're actually more involved in wanting to do it right.
We've got a lot of concerns in the seafood industry in regards to legislations with no more single-use plastics, which in return for our primary producer is a significant cost. Once you pass that on to a wholesaler to then pass it on to a chef, instead of coming up with a solution together to build packaging for a better ecosystem, they're getting everyone to compete, and it doesn't make sense. So before they make these legislations, don't you think it's a good idea that they have a solution or help present a solution?
What I like about the Discover Regenerative work that the Open Food Network have actually put together is this business-to-business platform. So buyers can actually find regenerative farmers in their own region and talk to them about the product supply and that process.
Okay, so that was about, you know, just demonstrating that, you know, regional-based sourcing can work at all scales, but also the expanding nature of the sustainable agriculture system. It's actually really starting.
Here in Brisbane, we run the Brisbane Convention Centre, so we've got the executive sous chef here from the Brisbane Convention Centre.
Next we had, see, I'm just too clever embedding these bloody videos. Next we had Policy Day. So the key messages from Policy Day are here. In terms of we had, you know, a whole bunch of lightning talks. Robert launched the coordinating a values-based supply chain report, and we had Leah Galvin, who presented her findings from her Churchill Fellowship on sustainable food procurement policies. So it was a really informative day, and I'll just run this video quickly.
So a couple of conundrums just to, because you're all policy people, is we need to talk about food. It's a huge problem. But the money that goes into food waste and food rescue at the moment, none of it's going into the solution.
Policy absolutely changes the way the market behaves. For that policy to be effective, we need to take the systems change approach and implement that effectively. And we all need to move. We need to come together.
Carbon tunnel vision is really, really strong in the banking and finance sector. This is where they're spending all their attention. And the issue with that is that in agriculture, as you will all know, carbon and nature go hand in hand. So to view the problem of nature without climate and vice versa is deeply problematic and a constraint actually on progress in this sector.
The restaurant and cafe scene in Moreton Bay is particular interest to me. I really want to be a bit of a hub for that scene, and so we will be running some capacity building workshops essentially coming up, which will allow them hopefully to grow and thrive.
98% of the food and beverage industry is made up of SMEs, 98%. We see that in our membership base. These are artisan makers, growers.
We sequester carbon. We add biodiversity. We provide health and food. We shorten the supply chains. We further decouple from fossil fuels. And if we can get the true cost of food in there, we divorce ourselves from market forces. All of those things are going to be great for humanity.
Yeah, and so, you know, that kind of just, it stimulated a lot of discussion that day, and it really opened up a lot of, you know, gaps in areas like regulation that wasn't fit for purpose, and also gaps in government leadership and support, particularly for the emerging food systems that are coming through. So, you know, Australia is very much focused on its export and commodity markets, and that's where most of the investment goes, and a lot of the policy settings are geared around that end of the market. So it's really important to have days like that where, you know, voices could be heard, where their lived experience could be shared, for policy leaders to be able to, you know, hear it firsthand. So I'm going to move on. Yep, great. Oh, hang on. Yeah, that's great. So in terms of the key messages, you the actions that we sort of, there was a number of themes that came through over the course of the summit, and looking at all the butcher's paper and all of the feedback through the surveys, there was a fairly strong consensus actually for in the lead up to the Olympics and the development of a food vision for Brisbane 2032 that a regional coordination body be established. It was emphasised that that there also needs to be broader community engagement as well, a parallel with the working group, as well as government leadership. So in terms of the development of the food vision, we are sort of thinking that, well, not us thinking, but the room, the feedback was that, we needed to take a cross-cutting partnership approach. So basically, breaking down all the silos across industry and government and working together to create this food vision. Farmers, they're really important, of all scales and of all varieties. Land managers as well, food systems organisations, they all need to be in the mix, as well as civil society organisations, to ensure that food justice is addressed. So not just food security, but also, food justice is much deeper than just food security. And of course, all your usual portfolios of agriculture, health, and environment. So and of course, there's the need for research teams to back that up. So making sure that we've got some solid terms of reference for this coordination body to ensure that, we've got data and establishing some benchmarking so there's visibility of what the current system is, because we set the idea of let's get 30% of locally grown food into the Olympics by 2032, but nobody really knows what the current percentage is. Now we're told that the data is there, but we just can't see it yet. So this is sort of a piece of work that really, I think, some research teams could really get stuck into, and would really be able to help the coordination body do their work really effectively. There was more actions that came out of it. Regional research and strategic planning was urgently needed in terms of long-term food system change, that a number of working groups could actually be initiated under that coordination body to ensure that, the effort is ensuring diversity and inclusion of marginalised voices, but also all parts of the industry and the value chain are heard. There's plans internally here at Food Connect to host the SEQ Food Summit biannually leading up to the Olympics, with monthly meetings in between, and perhaps some regional roadshows. So we're just in the process of planning all of that at the moment. Funding is also required for this, so we're looking for industry partners and government partners to do this work that will, get us there by 2032 and beyond. So they're just a few of the actions. The report, of course, has quite a few different themes that came through, but I just thought I'd provide some of the big ones and just to give you some idea of where we're going to be heading with our work. And of course, none of this work would have happened, without a whole bunch of help. So we're going to go to Q&A, and that'll leave us 15 minutes. But before we do, I just wanted to acknowledge the team that was behind me in putting the summit on. Thank you very much. You were awesome. We've had some great help from both the Food Connect Foundation board and the Shed boards. Sharon France from Looking Glass Press has done the design for the report, and across the 3 days we had 40 plus volunteers and 29 presenters. So we were just really pleased with the participation and just the joy that people brought to the 3 days. It was just such a pleasure to host that event. So thanks very much, everyone. Here is a QR code. Oh, sorry. Yep.
No, thanks, Emma. Just the other people I'd like to thank, and you'll read these more in the report, is the panelist speakers. So there was quite a lot of other speakers that.
That's what I've got 29 presenters.
Yeah, the 29 presenters, and you can read about all them in the report.
Yeah. And actually, I just forgot before we go to Q&A. I think I just mentioned this, but we're going to be launching the South East Queensland Regional Food Working Group to develop the food vision for the Brisbane 2032 Games. So we're looking for partners to do that. We want to work with Brisbane 2032 and with the view of the long-term legacy piece to 2042 out to there. So that will require looking at governance models, and everyone in the value chain is welcome to participate in South East Queensland. And we're going to kick that off on the 29th of November on a Friday lunchtime. So if there's a better date for the chefs in the room or hospitality workers in the room that we can get together, then let us know. And that will feed into our broader work going forward under our Purposeful Food Procurement Program, where we're going to be early next year developing a national community of practice around food procurement into institutions. Okay, so now questions, and there is a QR code if you want to download the report, and hopefully it works. So Rob, do you want to take over the question?
Yeah, thanks, Emma. So I haven't seen any questions in there yet, but if anyone wants to, you can just put up your hand like Rowan did earlier on, and Emma's the one, you'll have to do it, Emma, because I haven't got that ability to allow them to ask. Oh, actually, I can. Actually, I might start with who is anyone putting up their hand? No one? Any questions? Well, maybe Emma, if you can. Oh, hang on. Did I hear a hand go up just then?
Sarah Cooper.
Sarah. Righto, I'll find you, Sarah. I know you're there somewhere to allow you to ask the question live. Where are you? Goodness, there it is. I found you. Righto, here you go. Yes, righto. Sarah, you can ask that. You would like to answer this question live? I think you just try now, Sarah. See if you can ask the question. No, Emma, I think you're going to have to do this. I haven't got that facility.
No, it turned out it was me. I didn't see the unmute. Hello, everyone.
Very good. Righto, go.
Yeah, the question is in regard to getting involved with the Olympic food plan and being the legacy project, which is such a fantastic idea and a great way to really accelerate and achieve, or be the catalyst, as I think was the word you guys used. How is it going to it sounds like you've got a number of different projects, and perhaps this will become more clear on the 29th of November. But with regard to the Brisbane Food Plan, working in with Brisbane 2032, and then also having the National Food Procurement Community Practice, best practice, is that what you called it?
Community practice, yeah.
Yes. Are you able to just give a little bit of insight, or whatever you know at this point, because I know it's early days, but just, I think I've said I'd love to be a part of that food plan, like you both. Not so interested in the Olympics, no offence, as much as about the food plan, because that's what it's all about, right? So I'm curious, and I'd love to help in that regard, and I'm sure as many other people would, to help it to be the catalyst and guiding all of the long-term projects for South East Queensland, so that it's not about the Olympics, it's the fact that it's the pivotal point to establish this in a really strong way. So yeah, are you able to shed some light on how they all interrelate, I guess? Or
yeah, Emma, do you want to have a crack at that?
It was a long rambling question.
Yeah. No, it's a good question, Sarah, because we don't want to be too prescriptive prior to the 29th, but the main difference is, yes, you're right. The Olympics, we want to use the Olympics, and there's going to be a lot of work leading up to the Olympics So by 2030, we've achieved a lot in terms of Brisbane hitting most of those goals. And then it's a ramp up to the Olympics, because the Olympics is only over, the Paralympics and the Olympics is over a 2-month period. So there's physically a big scale up in terms of the produce that's required to feed Brisbane. And there's a whole bunch of planning around that. But it will take a lot of coordinating around, in terms of the legacy project, what's going to last for the 10 years beyond, and obviously improve from the goals that we hit by 2030. That's our original sort of thinking at this stage.
Yeah, okay.
And you're right, the difference between the COP, I suppose, the community of practice nationally, is that's more around value chain coordinators, so independent people working across the supply chain to help coordinate the supply chain better, whereas the Olympics or the 29th meeting is more around all the industry policymakers and everyone getting together and starting to formulate a vision that can be ready by 2030.
Yeah, okay. Great. Well, that answers the basic questions, because of course I'm thinking finance and where's the money coming from.
Correct.
And what part will 2032 Brisbane play in helping create these legacy projects? Yeah, thank you. That's it.
No, great to we'd love to have you involved in that, Sarah. So thanks for the question.
No problem.
Next question from Susan Wanma. Did you want to unmute Susan? Or?
Susan, I can do that. Yeah. Oh, you've done it.
Okay.
Yep, someone's done it. Susan.
Susan did ask, I can't find her anymore. Susan did if you can see her, Rob, unmute her, but otherwise I'll just keep going. She asked if the data was actually known and, for local food consumption and growing, and what sort of work needs to be done there.
Yeah, good question, Susan. At this stage, we know DAF think they've got the numbers, and there's a couple of people who have been at DAF for quite a long time. As Emma said earlier, they're not visible numbers. There's going to be a bit of work to be done. Whether it'll give us the baseline for knowing, where does Brisbane get its food from at the current time, and what are the parameters around that, we don't actually know yet. But that'll be one of the pieces of work that we'll be working with DAF and other departments on trying to ascertain.
Yeah. Barbara said, not a question, but a comment. Don't forget the community's portfolio in government when we're talking about food justice. So,
absolutely. Yeah. No, very, very good point.
Asked, when is the next summit?
2026. So who asked that question? Jeff Ebbs. Oh yes. Well, so much effort Emma in particular put into the summit and the summit findings of the summit report, as she was saying. It's sort of like it was an exhausting process, a thoroughly enjoyable process. We were looking around the world for other examples of food institution or purposeful procurement organisations working at a network level, and there's an organisation in the New England area of the States called PINE, Food Institution New England, and they have a biannual summit, and they spend the intervening year basically doing a lot more on-the-ground, place-based network development, partnership developments, and those sort of things. And we thought that's not a bad model to follow. But we're not leaving out the idea that a lot of people might rush to this idea of having a food summit, and we get a lot more, funding and responses that we do hold it on an annual basis. But we're leaving that at the moment. We want to focus 2025 on strengthening relationships, building partnerships, getting the baseline research, untapping that data and unlocking some of the financial impediments, and basically spending a lot more time across the supply chain, building relationships, bedding down some of the research. We know CSIRO are thoroughly in the first stages of some fantastic research. And we sort of think that by 2026, most of that will be more available than if we hold one in the middle of 2025.
Faith asked for the link to be put into the chat to the report, so I've just done that for you.
Oh, great. Thanks, Emma.
And I've found out how to open the chat to everybody. Yay! So it's working now. Okay, Linda asked, with our rapidly reducing farmland availability around Brisbane, does the potential for increasing food production appear viable on marginal or diminished land? Just quickly, it did come up, Linda. It was quite, it was a big theme that came through on Industry Day that, houses are being built on what was traditionally really good farmland. And it was also an issue for young farmers trying to access land to grow on. So land access and availability is becoming huge for cities all over Australia, and Brisbane is no exception to that. In terms of, just to give you a quick example I spoke to one of the guys who led the food procurement stuff in the 2012 London Games, and he said that the London City Council used the opportunity to engage the community for food growing. So they identified hundreds and hundreds of little pockets all over the city where the community could grow, set up community food gardens. And that went into local restaurants in the local community, and they're still there, and they're still engaging the community locally with food production and access. So, that's just one positive byproduct of having a really great food vision and a long-term plan.
The other side of it, Linda, is the crisis conundrum. So that was raised as and it's fair to say that food systems, or the importance of food systems, is a relatively new topic within government and even investing. So I think this will raise its head further and further, because we need to planning. There's a lot of, I suppose, tension. How do we solve housing, but at the same time not putting that on good agricultural land? So there's a lot of work to be done in that space, but it's a big challenge, I know.
Yeah. Gavin asked, any opportunities identified for industry training? I'm particularly interested in industry regen horticulture.
Well, I mean, there is more and more regenerative training for both agriculture and, in terms of one of the other groups we're involved in is Regen Australia, or the Regen Networks Australia. So there's Regen Sydney and Regen in Melbourne in particular, building across a broad portfolio of responses to regenerate cities. And Brisbane is certainly, there's a few people involved in that network, but they're specifically around food systems. Gavin, I mean, that was one of the things that come out of the research was it wasn't just coordination across the value chain in terms of, industry, wholesalers, buyers and farmers. It was also along the continuum of farmers, from balcony farmers right through to, your largest broadacre farmers out in, out in the rangelands, the Queensland rangelands. They also need to be coordinated better so they can see the values that they each provide each other. So the coordination aspect, the soft infrastructure needed across the whole food system is going to become critical as we move forward. And then from that side of things, capacity building to enable the food system to work strategically together, to align themselves around where there is strategic alignment, but also to become more efficient rather than competing against each other. And as food and agriculture there's no food department in government. There is an agricultural department, but as we know, food touches on so many things. So it's going to take a lot more soft coordination across silos of government, but also across all of the different civic food movements, right through to your mainstream agricultural organisations, and where we can best share knowledge, develop capacity, but importantly, build relationships and connect.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. And I think we might finish there. There was one question around coordination of food systems, but I think you've just answered that. Anonymous attendee said, "Do you realise the enormity?" Focusing.
Yes.
I guess for us, we focus where the strengths are. Like we you have to go with where the energy is, I guess, and that's going to be the role of this working group. Getting that going. So if you're interested in joining us, November 29 is when we'll be kicking things off.
Yeah, thanks everyone. I just wanted to emphasise. I mean, that last question is it is. But as I stressed and many others stressed at the summit, that food and agriculture is the unknown solution to the human imperative. And whilst that seems daunting and challenging, I truly believe, and the work that we've done over many, many years, we're now seeing an interregnum. We're now seeing a metamorphosis. We are seeing a lot more people start to realise that the challenges can only be solved by all of us working together. So we encourage you to download the summit report, get in touch. It's only what come out of the 3 days of the summit and the 4 events. And certainly Emma and I and others, and the sort of few people who are working at the food systems level, the bandwidth we have at the moment to really dive into this space and develop the necessary actions to take things forward. We need a lot more people to be in there. We need finance to come on board. We need corporations to really open up their minds and their systems to paradigm change and to really shifting their thinking about where their companies can play a role in being a part of this massive change that's needed. So thanks everyone. Thank you, Emma, for downloading downloading.
Yeah. And sorry to everyone
from what you've put into this. How many pages?
80.
What was that again?
80 pages.
80 pages.
Pretty picture.
There's lots of all the videos. Yeah, and Emma also, there's the videos too.
What I'll do after this, after I clean up the recording, because there's a lot of glitches, is I will send out the recording to everybody along with links to the report as well as the videos that we released today. So you can delve into all the material. And also, Kate asked if it was invitation only to the Regional Food Working Group. We will be also putting a call out to everyone on our list who attended the summit. But of course, if there are people you think that should be on that working group, then yes, please send them our way. So, the Food Summit was the very first step in this process, and we're in it for the long haul, and we want to see all of you join us. And you're all very welcome to come along to the next meeting. So, yeah, thanks, everyone. And thanks, Rob, for your support too and your big brain and big vision. And thanks to the community for supporting us. All right. Bye-bye.